We have with us globally renowned author, speaker, lifestyle mentor and coach, Sri Chaitanya Charan ji. He has authored over 25 books on spirituality, with some of them being bestsellers in India and worldwide. A motivational speaker and a specialist life coach, he is a guide to professionals and corporate leaders. Sri Chaitanya Charan ji travels all over the world from Australia to America, giving talks on spiritual subjects in universities such as Princeton, Yale, Cambridge, and companies such as Intel, Salesforce, and Microsoft, to list a few. His latest book, Gita for the CEO, condensing the relevant principles from the Bhagavad Gita into 10 sutra-like statements, making them accessible to the contemporary mind. Today, as Sri Chaitanya Charan ji joins us at Spectra, he will speak about how a clear purpose leads to a calm mind. This talk aims to help us better manage our stress-filled lives. Joining him on stage for a fireside chat after his talk will be Arun Sudhaman, journalist and PR industry analyst. Sri Chaitanya Charan ji, may we have you here, please?
Let's try to center ourselves a little bit. So I'll request all of you to join me in a brief breathing exercise. So wherever you're sitting, try to sit as comfortably as possible. And we'll take 3 deep breaths. And then we will try to chant the sound Om together. So this is a way we can connect our consciousness with cosmic energies. So we'll try to draw the Om as long as we can. So first, 3 deep breaths. Just let yourself experience the breath as you exhale and inhale. Together, now let's chant Om and just focus on the sound and let yourself be immersed. We'll try to draw out the sound as long as we can. Om. Let's do this 2 more times. Just try to relax and take 3 deep breaths and 1 more Om. You can join me, and this is a non-sectarian way by which we attune our energies with the universe. Feel the breath coming in and out. Together. One last time. can gently take 3 breaths and then gently open your eyes. Thank you. Are you feeling a little bit more relaxed? Thank you. So I'll speak today on how to calm our mind by cultivating a purpose. I'll speak this in 3 broad parts using an acronym ACT, A-C-T. So this will be based on the Bhagavad Gita. The first A is acceptance. In life, there are many things which happen against our will. And one of the biggest energy drainers in life is resentment. Now, why did this happen like this? Why did this person do like this? Why did I do like that? So, some of you may notice when I climbed up, I need crutches for walking. So when I was 1, I got polio. My mother had taken me to a clinic to get the polio vaccine. And we were staying in a small town in Maharashtra. And the clinic where the vaccine was to be administered had lost its power supply the previous night. And the attending physician didn't notice that. So the vaccine's germ percentage increased. And the vaccine, instead of preventing polio, ended up giving me polio. So I was just learning to walk, and I just fell and I couldn't walk normally afterwards. Now, I don't remember any of this, but my first remembrance of this is around when I was 2.5 or 3. A distant relative had come to meet us, and she was consoling my mother, saying, "It's so bad, such a thing happened to your son." And I remember my mother's voice, very calm, clear, confident, saying, "Whatever he lacks physically, God will provide him intellectually." I don't know what my mother saw in me at that age and why she spoke that statement. She passed away soon after that, so I didn't get to ask her. But somehow that stayed with me. And when I grew up, I couldn't play outdoor games like other kids. But I noticed that I could read very fast. I could grasp things quickly, remember them well, articulate them well. And so somewhere at the back of my mind, it settled that on one side, I didn't do anything to deserve this physical disability. But on the other side, I didn't do anything to deserve this intellectual ability also. So life is unfair. However, in the big picture, life is fairly unfair. Fairly unfair means in some areas, we get less than what we deserve. In some areas, we get more than what we deserve. And when I was studying my engineering, I was introduced to the Bhagavad Gita as a book of wisdom. I had studied it and memorized some verses in the childhood as an act of piety to please my parents. But that time it was more a book of religion. But when I started studying the Bhagavad Gita as a book of wisdom, that's where its teachings just spoke to me one after another. So this acceptance that comes from the Gita's teaching of karma. Sometimes the idea of karma is seen as an idea of judgment. That, you must have done something bad. That's why this bad thing happened to you. But actually the Gita presents karma in a very different way. It's not so much a philosophy of judgment as a philosophy of encouragement. Encouragement is that our actions matter even if they don't seem to matter. That we are all going through life, and if we want to get rid of resentment, the feeling that I have been wronged, it consumes so much of our mental energy. But if the acceptance comes up, that yes, some things are beyond our control, but in the big picture, life, I might be going through a bad phase right now, but we all go through bad phases and we all go through good phases. Kabhi khushi, kabhi gum. So acceptance, it helps us to, when life goes up and down, we can go up and we can go down. Or sometimes we go down and stay down only. But acceptance helps us to recognize that some battles may be lost, but that doesn't mean all battles are lost. So this acceptance comes from the idea of karma, and it can free us from resentment. And that is one of the biggest agitators of the mind. So, does anyone remember the acronym I was going to talk about? ACT, yeah, ACT. That's also related with karma, but that's more than something action. So after acceptance, mere acceptance can be simply passive. Oh, just this is the way it is, live with it. No. After the next is C is curiosity. Curiosity is jigyasa. The opposite of curiosity is judgmentality or labeling. Now, we all have probably been labeled by others in particular ways. And we are so much more than any label that others have given us. And sometimes we get angry. Some people say, oh, this person is a bookworm. This person is a nerd. This person is a show-off. We all get labeled in different ways. But while we may recognize that and we may not label others, but we often label situations. So curiosity is that there are things which I know, there are things which I don't know. And okay, in what I know, things may be going wrong right now. If I focus only on what is going wrong, so one of the mental agitators is resentment. The second is anxiety. So when we are looking at what is going wrong, we tend to become very anxious. And yes, if something is going wrong, we need to be concerned about it. But curiosity means that what I don't know may be more important than what I know. That this was my plan, and that plan is not working. That plan seems to have become completely disrupted. But just because my plan has been disrupted does not mean that my life is destroyed. That there is a higher plan working in the lives of each one of us. And curiosity means not once we say, okay, this went wrong, I accept it happened. Curiosity is, okay, this turned out this way. What is the opportunity over here? Is there something for me to learn? Is there some way I can grow? So curiosity is a virtue, but it can be much more developed if we have a spiritual worldview, where we understand that things don't operate in just two extremes of the quadrant. Now extremes of pendulum. One is things are in my control or things are out of my control. So in between is things may be sometimes in my control, they may be sometimes out of my control. But they are under some higher control. That there is a higher plan. So curiosity opens doors for us when we feel that all the doors have been shut down. So I have written this book, Gita for the CEO. So each one of us has to become first the CEO of our own life. Without that, even if we become CEO, we will not become the chief executive officer, we will become the chief execution officer. What do I mean by that? We will execute plans that will destroy things. So we have to gain a handle over ourselves. In life, there are two kinds of people. Some people are wise and some are otherwise. And we ourselves tend to go in between these two. Sometimes wise, sometimes otherwise. So curiosity is about changing the driving question that is there in our mind. So what is it? Sometimes, why do bad things happen to me? Well, why do bad things happen to good people? That's a valid question. But a much more valuable question is, when bad things happen to good people, what do good people do? The same Gita that is spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, after hearing it, Arjuna fights a war. And in that war, his son Abhimanyu is killed. Arjuna at that time is overpowered by both guilt that I was not there for my son and anger that his brother sent his son into the war and he was trapped over there. So at that time, Krishna pulls Arjuna into a side hug. And Krishna tells Arjuna, O Partha, that's another name of Arjuna, O Partha, in this world, bad things happen to everyone, the wise and the unwise. What differentiates the two is when bad things happen, the unwise act in ways that make things worse, whereas the wise act in ways that make things better. He said, Krishna tells Arjuna, look at your brothers' faces. They are in pain just as you are because of the death of your son. Please don't speak words that will increase their pain. So curiosity and faith are complementary. Curiosity is, okay, what is there for, what is happening here? What is the plan over here? Faith is, there is a higher plan. So curiosity opens up to the last step. That is, T is transformation. Transformation means that sometimes we cannot change the big things that have happened in our life, but we can always take small steps. So the readiness to take small steps, even when the full path is not visible, that is what the power that is developed through acceptance and curiosity. One of the biggest keys to success in life is to not be attached to our definition of success. Sometimes we think this is how my life should be, and when life doesn't seem to be that way, our life could be good. But because it is not going the way we have envisioned it, our mental doors close down. So transformation is where we are open to how can I move ahead in this situation? What small steps can I take? When I travel across the world many times, especially when we're in the student phase or the young adult phase, the tendency of the mind is to catastrophize. Catastrophize, oh, this thing went wrong, I'm ruined. So sometimes people come to me and say, I'm powerless, there's nothing I can do about this situation. My life is terrible. So then I ask them this question, you are saying you can do nothing about your situation? Yeah, absolutely, I can't do anything. Okay, so, can you make things worse? They look at me as if I'm crazy. I just told you my life is terrible. Why would anyone want to make it worse? I said, no, you don't have to make it worse. I'm asking you, can you make your situation worse? No matter how bad our situation is, we never lose the power to make it worse. Now what that means is, if we can make things worse, we can make things better also. And this is where the last thing that agitates the mind, which is hopelessness. So hopelessness comes because we devalue the power or devalue the effect of small steps. The Gita says, Shanai, Shanai, gradually, step by step. So when we are in a difficult situation, our mind is getting agitated. Transformation is about take small steps forward. And I'll conclude with this point. Transformation is on two sides. That there is transforming the things around us, and there is transforming the thoughts inside us. When I was studying engineering, since my childhood, I had a lot of faith in the power of education. So after I completed my 10th, I started a free tuition classes for 8th, 9th kids. When I was studying engineering, I had joined a social welfare organization where we offered free tuition classes to the kids in a nearby slum. And I soon noticed that these kids, they became friends and they started telling about their home situation. There was alcoholism, mostly among their fathers, and there's domestic violence. And I started thinking that, I'm telling them about when the Second World War happened and when the First World War happened, telling them to memorize those things, but there's a war going on in their own home. So how much am I really helping them? So we decided to diversify as a part of the organization into anti-alcohol campaigning to help people. And as a small slum, everybody over there agreed to give up alcoholism. And we were very happy. Then we went for a semester break back home. And when I came back, I found that not only the fathers, but even the kids had started drinking. So in between, there had been local municipality election, and one of the candidates had brought truckloads of free liquor for everyone to woo the voters. That's when it's like a mental image came within me that if we are going on the path of life, we're all trying to open doors to a better life. That education, employment, career breakthroughs, communication, PR, it's all about opening doors. We want to open doors. And often when doors are shut in our face, we feel very bad. But while there are doors to be opened, on the path of life, there are trap doors. And we all can fall into those trap doors. Those trap doors are our own self-sabotaging tendencies. It could be because of some addictive craving. It could be just excessive moodiness. In my case, I had a bit of anger. I had a bit of a temper in my childhood, even my teenage. Now, the problem was not just that I had a bad temper. The problem was I had a bad temper and a good vocabulary. Some people, when they get angry, they just sputter in anger. They can't speak anything. Some people just raise their voice, but nothing coherent comes out. But somebody has a good vocabulary, they can just be so sarcastic. They can cut people for life. So I realized I had to get a handle on this. And that's when I encountered the Bhagavad Gita. And its spiritual wisdom, it tells us essentially that when we connect with the divine through meditation of the kind that we did in the beginning, through prayer, that's the way we close the trap doors in our life. So through technology, through education, through economic development, we'll open doors. And that's wonderful. We should be opening doors. Technology in general and economic development, it can open doors and improve the outer world. Spirituality can close the trap doors. The inner trap doors by which we end up working against ourselves. Our own thoughts become our enemies. Our own thoughts start eating us up. We all will face loss in life. See, when loss happens, we could think, okay, I have lost. Or we could think, I am a loser. Now, both of them are thoughts. First is objective. Okay, I lost this. Let me move ahead in my life. But the second, I am a loser. That can be a devastating thought. So, if we were in a relationship with someone whom we considered to be a loser, we would want to end that relationship immediately. But if we think we are a loser, we can't break up with ourselves. What do? It's a very toxic way to live. So our thoughts can be our enemies. And ultimately, when people try to end their lives, suicide, it's a tragic social phenomena, but it is nothing but an attempt to break up with oneself. So ensuring that our thoughts don't become enemies is vitally important. And the practices of yoga, of meditation, of spirituality, they connect us with a higher reality. They give us access to a positivity coming from beyond just our own thinking capacity. And that's how those inner trapdoors get closed. And when that happens, when we learn to transform our thoughts by closing the trapdoors inside us, we'll find that we'll be able to transform the things in our life much more effectively. Each one of us has a lot of potential. And all of you have achieved significant levels of success in your life. There is so much more good each one of us can do if we can learn to make our thoughts our friends. And how much good we can do, discovering that can be our life's greatest adventure. And that is what the Bhagavad Gita calls each one of us to do. So I'll summarize. I talked about 3 things to calm our mind and to have a clear purpose. First is acceptance, which can free us from resentment. accept that life is unfair, but in the big picture, it is fairly unfair. And then C is curiosity. Curiosity frees us from judgmentality and labeling and the negativity that comes. And okay, this door may have closed, but some other door may have opened. Instead of seeing life through the polar perspective of things are according to my plan, in my control, or things are out of my control. Things are under a higher control. There is a bigger plan for my life. So let me just take small steps. That's the T is transformation. And this transformation frees us from the negativity of devaluation, pessimism, where we devalue our efforts and we end up devaluing ourselves. So transform our thoughts through spirituality, and then we can transform the things around us through the resulting positivity and the purpose that will emerge thereby. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Mr. Charanji, thank you so much. Quite a fascinating talk you gave, and I think very helpful for people in this room. And what I'd like to do now is just ask you a few questions.
Sure.
That maybe reflect the experiences of people in this room working in the PR and communications world. I don't know how familiar you are with these industries, but it's not rocket science. But nevertheless, definitely not the easiest world to navigate from a mental health standpoint. And we have survey after survey which reflects that mental health is quite a serious issue in this industry. So let's start with one of the big issues. How would you advise, or what would your kind of thinking be in terms of trying to build better balance and trying to protect and enhance your mental well-being when you're faced with, for example, incessant, non-stop client demands and this kind of media environment which is, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constant notifications and messages, and this expectation that professionals working in these industries need to be always on.
Yeah, it's a tough situation. Sometimes as a spiritual teacher also, people come to us for seeking mental health help. And I woke up once, we don't wake up by 4 o'clock or something in the morning. So I woke up and saw my phone. In our tradition, whenever we greet each other, we say, please accept my humble respects or obeisances. So this friend had messaged me, please accept my final respects. So I had to usually put everything aside and call him. And so I'm not unfamiliar with the situation. But two things I found are helpful. In our life, there are some things that give us strength and some things that require strength. Like it's with people also. Some people bring happiness wherever they go. And some people bring happiness whenever they go. So now the second kind of people may also be very helpful in our life in the long run. They may help us to grow. They may force us to improve. But the thing is that if all the time we are dealing with people who are exhausting and demanding, we will collapse. So we need to manage our emotional energy balance by balancing the activities that we do. We make a list of, in my life, which are the 3 activities which consume my energy the most. Physical energy or emotional energy. And then which are the activities that generate energy for me, that give energy for me. And then, although we can't change our life completely within the demands of our profession, we can structure our life in such a way that when we have done some activities that require energy, after that we do some activities that give us energy. So if we can start our day with a bit of a meditation, with something spiritual which connects us with something deeper reality, that can give us some energy. But each one can find out, within my schedule, within my current life, how can I make sure that the activities that give me energy, I am doing them adequately. So that the activities for which I have to give energy, I have energy to give for that. The Gita calls this as yukta. Yukta means to stay connected. So we need to be connected with ourselves by ensuring this energy balance.
Yeah, I think that's a very helpful way of looking at it. So connected to this, and you've answered this to a certain extent, but I'd like to ask you anyway. For people working in these industries often play this kind of role where they are, on the one hand, having to deal with, perhaps clients that maybe don't treat them that well. Sometimes there is a level of toxic communication, toxic behavior. And then on the other hand, they're dealing with media and journalists who similarly may not treat them very well and may dismiss them. And so it doesn't help in terms of necessarily building a strong self-esteem. So how would you advise people to remain resilient and to continue believing in themselves faced with these kinds of situations?
Yeah. See, where our self-worth comes from is something which each one of us needs to observe. We have extrinsic self-worth and we have intrinsic self-worth. And everybody will have both of those things. The extrinsic self-worth may come from how much we earn, how good we look, what kind of marks we have got in our exams, how many friends and followers we have on social media. All these are important. But there are some things which sustain our intrinsic self-worth. And ultimately, the intrinsic self-worth comes from a spiritual worldview. A spiritual worldview tells us that we are at our core divine beings. We are sparks of divinity. And whether the world values us or devalues us, our value at our core does not change. And having some kind of spirituality, a spiritual worldview can help us fostering that intrinsic self-worth. That my self-worth should not be my net worth. So, and the second point I would say is that in our life, there will be people who will value us and there will be people who will devalue us. The recipe for destroying our mental health is to overvalue the people who devalue us. That, some people, we do 100 things for them, and the only thing that they do is complain that you didn't do the 101st thing. Now, if we center our life in trying to get their praise, we will set ourselves up for misery. So don't overvalue those who devalue us. And conversely, don't devalue those who value us. We will all have some people in our lives who encourage us, who appreciate us. But then we start saying, we always speak like this only. But they may actually be valuing us. So if we stop devaluing those who value us, and we stop overvaluing those who devalue us, now how much we can do in a professional setting, that is something which we'll have to work out practically. But at least psychologically, when we understand this, then it is easier to first have an intrinsic self-worth, and through our spirituality, and extrinsic self-worth through choosing whose words we'll value.
So a room full of communicators, and I know that one of the areas that you do focus on in your work is the art of effective communication.
Yes.
So very quickly, what would be your advice and your tips in terms of the art of effective communication?
Yeah, so the Bhagavad Gita itself, while it's a philosophical book, it's a masterpiece in communication. Arjuna is so dejected that he says, I just can't do anything. And he's put aside his bow. Arjuna's bow, we are all in many ways like Arjuna. And Arjuna's bow is our enthusiasm. So when he puts aside his bow, saying, I can't fight, it's like we becoming disheartened in life. And the Gita is actually one of the most smallest philosophical books in the world. It's just 700 verses. That's just the front and the back page of Times of India. You can have all the verses of the Gita actually. So in just about an hour, the whole Gita can be recited. And Arjuna comes out, raising his bow, ready to take on the world. as required. So if somebody went to a therapist and in 1 hour they came out, they went out almost suicidal and they come out whistling. Say, what happened? What did you speak? So what does the Gita do? Basically, it says communication has two aspects to it. One is it has to be sensitive. The other is it has to be sensible. Sensitive is what touches the heart. Sensible is what guides the head. So each one of us, based on our particular nature, may trend towards, some people are more logical, so they focus on the sensible aspect only. But they may not touch the heart aspect. So some people may be more sentimental, but sometimes logic in their communication might be a little less. So if you can find the balance between being sensitive and being sensible. When I'm going to convey this, okay, this is logical? Is this persuasive? But then is it also inspiring? Is it also encouraging? Those two aspects we manage, communication can become much more effective.
Thank you. So any questions from the floor, please? We have one here.
Hari Om Swamiji. I am Vaishnavi Nambiar. I am from St. Aloysius Deemed to be University, Bangalore. In the Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan Shri Krishna says, Vyavasayatmiga buddhir ekeha kurunandana. That means those who are resolute in their purposes will have a single-minded focus, and those who are not will be scattered in many directions. So I have also read this quote from Robin Sharma's book, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, that the purpose of life is a life of purpose. So in today's world, where we come across many kind of distractions, where expectations, especially societal expectations, tend to cloud our personal aspirations, how can we, especially students, young students, cultivate and attain a clear purpose so that amidst these chaos, material success, the race for it, and uncertainty that actually comes from it can be handled or tackled efficiently?
Yeah, thank you. So, please have a seat.
Yes.
So, in one sense, the discovery of purpose is also is self-discovery. So the Gita says, Guna Karma Vibhagashaha, that if you have to understand what is our purpose, it begins with self-observation. We can look at two things. When we have the guna for something, then we are comfortable doing it. We feel happy doing something. And we have the karma for doing something, then we are competent at doing it. So if you envision two circles, like a Venn diagram, what are the things in your life that you feel happy doing? You may like music, you may like nature, you may like a particular subject, whatever it is. We're not talking here about, I just like to watch TV. That is very superficial kind of thing. What do I really like to do in terms of connecting and contributing, going deep into it? So one is, what am I comfortable doing? And the second is, what am I competent at doing? So what do I feel good doing, and what am I good at doing? So if we observe these two things, and if you can find even one thing as an intersection, the two, what I feel good doing and what I am good at doing, that is the area where we are most likely to find our purpose. And sometimes our minds may be so agitated that discovering our purpose may take some time. So instead of thinking of one purpose for my entire life, focus right now on just self-understanding. Okay, this is one thing which I like, and this is something I'm good at also. I feel good doing, I'm good at doing. Let me explore this. So there is this inner connection that we develop, like an inner flashlight. And if we have, like I said, a spiritual connection, understanding that the divine has a part in our life, then that gives us a stability. The flashlight we're trying to hold inwards, like you said, our own desires and the world's expectations, that'll keep shaking the flashlight. We won't be able to see properly. But if we have a spiritual dimension, a divine connection with our life, that flashlight becomes steady. Yes, we have to do many things because of the social pressure, because of our own personal needs. But while doing it all, we can keep observing, and gradually we can discover what it is that we have been gifted to do. Now, we are all parts of the divine, and we all have parts in the divine plan. Okay?
Thank you for the insights, Swamiji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you.
Thank you for your profound reflections. My question is about spirituality itself. Isn't it possible, even for an atheist or an agnostic, to be spiritual by leading a virtuous life? And vice versa, isn't it possible for a theist not to be spiritual at all because of the absence of virtues in his or her life?
Yes, see, ultimately, theists and atheists, these are labels. And often these labels are quite reactionary. Even if there is some divine reality, we all have conceptions of the divine reality. And we often react to those conceptions. And then, so more important than a label of theist or atheist, the idea, the essence of spirituality is that the inner world matters more than the outer world. The invisible and intangible matters more than the visible and the tangible. And that is the premise of science. When Newton saw the apple falling, that was a visible event. But from there, the idea of gravity is an invisible conception. So all knowledge grows by looking at observing visible phenomena and postulating invisible principles to explain those phenomena. So spirituality is recognizing that the invisible, which in the case is thoughts, for example, invisible matters more than the visible on many occasions. So that, and then how can we work to improve the invisible? And sometimes religion can become very sectarian, and it's quite possible that religious people can lack virtues. It's possible that people who don't call themselves religious may have virtues. So the important thing is not so much what we believe, but it is how we live. And the virtues can have a much stronger foundation if they are grounded in a worldview that there is an invisible world and an invisible reality. If the visible world is the only real world, say if gaining wealth and power and fame are the only things in life, then what is the impetus for sticking to virtue? It's not that a non-spiritual person can't be virtuous, but it is that a non-spiritual worldview does not provide any real impetus for being virtuous. So the idea is virtue is what is important, how we behave is what is important, and how we live, but often a worldview that is spiritual is most likely to sustain virtues in a person's life.
Thank you so much. It's very clear that your reflections and thinking has sparked a lot of interest amongst the people here. So can you please join me in thanking Sri Charanji?
Thank you, Charanji, for this enlightening talk, and Arun for this discussion. I request Arun to please present Sri Chaitanya Charanji with a Sparkle gift card.